Hey, what is up, mortals? It is Trina DuHeart here with a new video for you. In this video, we'll dive into Mr. Satan from the Dragon Ball Z and Super anime. I just wanted to greet you guys by saying, just sit back and relax. You're in for a treat. So, let's get started. Arrogance and strength typically go hand in hand. But what happens when you combine arrogance without any of the strength? Well, if you ask Dragon Ball creator Akira Toriyama, you get a self-centered, egotistical, cowardly shell of a man all wrapped in a lovable shell named Mr. Satan. And today, we'll be diving into all the things we love and hate about Mr. Satan. For starters, his name isn't actually Mr. Satan. Shocking, I'm sure. But believe it or not, his actual name is Mark. When Mark was young, he visited a dojo called Satan Castle. He quickly became the world martial arts champion through a combination of genuine martial arts ability, good luck, and undeniably underhanded tactics such as poisoning his opponents as food before a competition. Following his victory, Mark took on the name Mr. Satan in honor of his home dojo. The title came with massive fame and fortune that only encouraged Mr. Satan's questionable behavior, which would often get him into trouble. One such instance of this was one day, while on tour at a bar in South City, Mr. Satan unknowingly made the mistake of making fun of mercenary Tao's hairstyle. As a result, Mr. Satan was heavily injured, and his master, who was with him at the time, was actually killed. From that point on, Mr. Satan swore never to fight anyone he wasn't fully sure of their identity, or simply anyone who seemed crazy strong. Many years later, in age 756, Mr. Satan had his daughter, Videl, with an unnamed mother who passed away shortly after their child's birth due to cancer. This leaves Mr. Satan as a single father to raise Videl as he never remarries. Because of this, Mr. Satan becomes very protective of his daughter, especially in regard to her romantic relationship, only allowing her to have a boyfriend if he was stronger than him. Mr. Satan first emerges in the anime during the Cell Saga. After hearing Cell's announcement of the Cell Games, Mr. Satan announces to his fans that he will enter the tournament and defeat Cell before he can destroy the Earth. To show off beforehand, Mr. Satan entertains a large crowd of fans by punching through a bus and ripping a large book in half. While the crowd appeared impressed, the Z-Fighters watching this on TV thought the whole display was rather sad to watch. When Mr. Satan arrived at the Cell Games, he arrived in a chauffeured vehicle to flex his wealth and promote his merchandise, Satan goods, to those watching it televised. Before Mr. Satan enters the ring, Goku tries to warn Mr. Satan against confronting Cell, but he believes he is more than capable of handling him due to him being nothing more than a trickster. This is a reassurance that Mr. Satan frequently relies on simply because he, like many other humans, are completely unaware of the existence of ki energy, and, as a result, just believes all the feats that are performed are no more than just smoke and mirrors. This goes against Mr. Satan's oath to not fight anyone who he could not comprehend their full strength. He could hardly understand the way the Z-Fighters fought, and given that the way Cell would fight would go over their heads, Mr. Satan was completely out of his depth. Believing this wholeheartedly, Mr. Satan and his students Karoni and Piroshiki face perfect Cell and lose quickly in an embarrassing fashion. Despite this, though, the TV reporter broadcasting the Cell Games to the rest of the world consistently stands with Mr. Satan, and subsequently ridicules Goku and the other Z-Fighters as they begin their fights. While on paper, this seems strange, but you have to think, in the people's eyes, Mr. Satan is the strongest man in the world. So they all firmly believe that Mr. Satan is the only one who stands a chance of triumphing over Cell, and anyone else who tries is just making a fool out of themselves. After his defeat, Mr. Satan tries to hype himself up again by showing off his strength to those watching at home. To do this, he set up a pallet of 15 tiles stacked on top of each other, which he planned to break. He succeeded for the most part and ended up breaking 14. This was enough to motivate Mr. Satan to get back in the ring, and he attacked Cell with his dynamite kick, but Cell launched him away with a flick of his hand. From then on, Mr. Satan and his students sat out the rest of the Cell Games, not because they lost, of course, but because they broke the rules by stepping out of the ring, and it was only fair for him to disqualify themselves. Even when he is encouraged to return to the ring by the public, Mr. Satan cites unbearable stomach pain, which prevents him from re-entering the fight. This, of course, is all a farce. Mr. Satan now knows he is no match for Cell, but his pride will never admit it. Plus, if he does, he knows his fans will abandon him, and his fortune will fall down the drain. At some point, the television equipment brought by the TV team gets destroyed, and the feed to the outside world is severed. As a result, the rest of the world is unable to see Gohan defeat Cell in battle. So seeing the opportunity for redemption, Mr. Satan convinces the news reporter and everyone else in the world that the Z-Fighters had failed to defeat Cell. But never fear, as he was there to intervene, and he himself was able to defeat Cell single-handedly with a powerful karate chop. As peculiar as the claim sounds, the public is quickly convinced of Mr. Satan's lie, and he becomes the world's new hero. This becomes the first instance of a recurring bit where Mr. Satan steals the thunder of Z Fighters for his own personal gain. This only continues as we go on to Dragon Ball Super. This video is sponsored by NordVPN. Staying safe online is an ever-growing difficulty, and hackers could exploit you. NordVPN allows you to change your IP address, making you harder to track, securing your privacy. In addition to providing you with safe passage through the web, you can also expand the reach of your favorite streaming services. Are you tired of going through 2, 3, or even 4 streaming services to watch your favorite anime? Well, with NordVPN, you can change your country and be able to binge shows like My Hero Academia, Naruto, and many others on your favorite streaming service with just a press of a button. Check out the link in the description to get 72% off when buying for 2 years /$3.29 a month. This deal is for a limited time. And thank you to NordVPN for sponsoring this video. 7 years after Cell's defeat, Mr. Satan has become richer and more famous than before. With this fame, it's rumored that Mr. Satan has completely given up on his training and is living off of his reputation alone, become what can be best described as a womanizing creep. His cowardice has also grown tenfold as he has now regressed to the point where he will hide behind his daughter when intruders raid his home. Despite all of this, he still manages to have the admiration of his daughter. During this time, the World Martial Arts Tournament returns in search of a new world champion. As the reigning world champion, Mr. Satan is automatically entered into the World Martial Arts Tournament with high hopes that he's still in fighting shape. Those dreams fall apart, though, as he sees the Saiyans that defeated Cell years before entering the tournament. Mr. Satan tries to avoid combat with the Z Fighters as long as he can, but he can no longer dodge it when he is scheduled to fight Trunks in a sparring match after he wins the Junior Divisionals. Mr. Satan realizes he stands no chance in a real sparring match, so, as a trick, he asks Trunks to only lightly tap him on his face. However, Trunks knocks him out of the ring by even a light tap. The audience believes it was all for show, and that Mr. Satan let the Junior Champ win despite having a very obvious injury to his nose. Following a brief interruption by Bobiti's goons, Mr. Satan is set to fight in a battle royal against Android 18, Killa, Jewel, and Goten, and Trunks in a trench coat under the alias Mighty Mask. Soon, Killa and Jewel are eliminated, and Android 18 unmasks Mighty Mask's true identity. So when Android 18 goes to comfort Mr. Satan, she cuts him a deal. Android 18 doesn't want the fame of winning, and she knows he doesn't want to be embarrassed in front of everybody, so she agrees to throw the final match if Mr. Satan pays her 20 million zenny. Despite the demand being double what the tournament offered to pay the victor, he agreed, and Android 18 took the dive. Shortly after the conclusion of the tournament, Majin Buu kills Babidi and starts terrorizing the Earth. The people ask Mr. Satan to go to Majin Buu's house to kill the monster, and he full-heartedly agrees. He doesn't even try to use his martial arts on the beast, and instead opts for more complicated yet sad methods. Firstly, he tries to poison him with a box of chocolate, and when that doesn't work, he uses a bomb disguised as a video game, and when that doesn't work, he tricks Majin Buu into posing for a photo, having him lie on his belly while Mr. Satan strikes a pose over him, so it looks like he beat him. Mere moments after this picture, Mr. Satan ironically agrees to become Majin Buu's servant. Despite this, though, Mr. Satan hasn't given up as he plans to detonate super explosives that he has planted all over Majin Buu's home. But before he can detonate the explosives, Majin Buu returns with a hurt puppy and wants to nurse it back to health. It was this moment that got Mr. Satan to think that maybe Majin Buu wasn't so bad. Maybe he shouldn't see him as so black and white, and maybe there was still some good in him to be saved. From then on, Buu and Mr. Satan form a true friendship and really get to understand one another. From then on, several attempts on Majin Buu's life are made by outside sources, and surprisingly, Mr. Satan has now made a complete flip and is now protecting Majin Buu from each of those attacks using his previously dormant martial arts skills. This is a good example of when if Mr. Satan is really motivated by a good fight, he's actually a very brilliant fighter. This development is short-lived when mere moments later, once Good Buu and Kid Buu are separated, he tries to solve the problem by bringing a gun to a key fight and shooting a Kid Buu. Luckily, Tien intervenes as the gun would just make him angrier. He does a few more ridiculous things making you think that Mr. Satan is just going to return to his comic relief ways, but then he does something really interesting. In a last-ditch effort, the Saiyans attempt to use a spirit bomb on Majin Buu, but they can't get enough spiritual energy to make it nearly big enough. However, it's when Mr. Satan steps in and convinces the world to give their energy to Goku's super spirit bomb. Mr. Satan has a moment of clarity and becomes genuinely angry at the people of Earth because they refuse to believe and help the one chance they had that would save them from Kid Buu once and for all. Given Mr. Satan's influence on everyone, they actually listen. The spirit bomb then gathers enough energy to destroy Kid Buu, and after the dust settles, Mr. Satan goes on to live with the pure good Boo. After this, Mr. Satan settles down with his daughter and soon-to-be soon-in-law Gohan, with Majin Buu living with them as a guest. He still appears as comic relief in many of the later sagas, but he will never receive as deep of character development as he did in the Majin Buu saga. Which is a shame because he offers a genuine good lesson on the idea of the power of fame and the corruption that can come along with it. But he also taught us how that power could be redirected and concentrated to something more impactful and meaningful that can help people instead of hurt. At the same time, though, arrogant and self-centered, Mr. Satan still shows genuine love and care for his family, and shows that he is willing to fight for them in any way he can. So who knows, maybe that character development did him some good. Thank you all for indulging yourselves in all this information thus far. I hope you enjoyed it. Now, there are a few more things that I'd like to go over before the video ends. Firstly, if you're in the mood for some great storytelling, We the Celestials has got you covered. Our We the Celestials My Hero Academia and Naruto What If channels retell the story of their namesake anime with a twist. Check it out if you're interested. Secondly, on behalf of We the Celestials, I'd like to thank everyone involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details can be found in the description below. Lastly, if you're interested in what we do here at We the Celestials, then I'd like to extend you an invitation to join the team. The only caveat being that we only accept members from 16 years and up to join our crew. You can sign up for whichever category fulfills your interest by joining the recruitment Discord using the link in the description below. We're always looking for members to join us. And if you want more content from me, check out my channel at Trina Do Heart on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and more. Well, that's it from us for today's video. So thank you all for watching and have a great day.